Most squadrons are individual squadrons. So I was a gunship pilot, Jack was a 46 pilot, and then you had the Jolly Green pilot. I never thought we'd be fighting communism in America, but that's what we're continuing to do today. I mean, it's just disgusting. So Jack, I have a quick question. I was a lieutenant and you're a lieutenant because we had a composite squadron. Most squadrons are like one aircraft type, but we all got together to go on this carrier, 3 different aircraft, 3 different personalities of pilots. We're all different personality and all this. And so Jack would sit there, and the Huey gunship pilots were the rabble rousers. We laughed at everything and all this. But Jack always managed up. But the Huey pilots would sit there and go, oh, he's kissing that guy's ass, you know. And Jack would stand there with that same smile, and what it was like was I call it feet dry. You know, we were about 25 miles out at sea, and the aircraft would fly. I remember tagging along with Jack because Jack was in the 46, and the Huey pilots always gave the 46 pilots a lot of grief because we said we got to stay away from the 46 because it always broke in half, and so these 46s, those twin rotors going like this, and they broke in half in the middle of the sky. Yeah, so the Huey pilots said, well, we'll stay away from those guys because they're going to die anyway. It was station 410. Ding, ding, 410 departing, and it came in half, but we still flew, and we kept flying. And I had 2 friends never come back. They were A6 pilots, and I used to say to him, he was my classmate since I was 10 years old, Robbie Peacock. And the A6 was a flying coffin because it came in so low level. The point is, why did we keep flying? Even though we're going to die anyway. And there's one more story I'd like to have you tell is that that was when technology changed. You know what happened is that we spent millions training one pilot and millions training a crew. So in my aircraft, there were 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and a crew. $1 million aircraft. And up until then, we had to come in at 1,500 feet because the Viet Cong and NVA were firing the AK-47 at us. But then technology came in, and there was this thing called the SA-7. It was a handheld heating rocket. And as I write about in the book, is that all of a sudden we had to change. We couldn't come in at 1,500 anymore. We had to come in at treetop level. It's called defilade. So if you can imagine, you're up here, you can see each other. But when we had to come into the battle at this level at treetop, we couldn't see each other. We're so tight and close and all. So, and it took nothing to train that Viet Cong shoot that rocket. No training. Probably cost $1,000. Just pulled the trigger, and that rocket came right up our tailpipe, and it changed everything. So Jack and I were there when technology took over skill. So a little Viet Cong, it could be a man or woman, just point and just came up our tailpipe. So how has that affected? I mean, I still remember it. I don't really know how it affects, you know, there were times of immense sadness, if you know what I mean. The sadness that is indescribable. So, you know, it was a guy named Stalin. I went to, you know, military school, and there was this guy Stalin, and everybody knew he was as bad, if not worse, than Hitler. And they sent this general, his name was Patton, and Patton wanted to stop him. Patton wanted to stop Stalin in Berlin.
Oh, yes, he did.
He did. But the difference is, you see, Jack became a general, lieutenant general, and I'm still a lieutenant. Disciplinary problem. But we still fought and all this. But what Patton said, the reason Patton was so well loved was Patton fought from the front, and the other generals fought from the back. And what happened is because he basically, you know, Patton said that Eisenhower and FDR were more concerned about politics than fighting. And he said, plus Stalin had like 55 million, you know, Russians behind of him, and they didn't want a prolonged war. And so my point of view is because they pulled Patton back, communism kept spreading. Stalin never, it was replaced by Khrushchev and all these guys. And what do you say about that as a 3-star general? That's another whole level of leadership in the field, a general who fights from the front and generals who fight from the back. And then you had this guy like Patton fighting Stalin. And we're now fighting Stalin today in America. My aunt was a prima ballerina of Paris, and she fought for the French resistance. And so she would go and drink with the Russians to gain information. And then I went to school in New York, and she lived in New York on the Upper East Side. And she told me, she says, Patton was the guy. Patton had the plan, but politics got in the way. She says people respected Patton because he was going to take them all the way back. And she said to me, she said, if Patton had stopped Stalin, there'd be probably 100 million people still alive, because socialism and communism, they've killed more people than capitalism. Or they've changed history. Our school teachers are Marxists, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to say this, so Patton should have stopped Stalin. He didn't let him stop him. Oh, you know what he said? I was reading this quote by Patton. He says, oh my God, he says, the Marines are fighting in the Pacific. I hope they don't get all the credit. He wanted to go, Patton wanted to go kick ass at the Japanese because he was afraid the Marines would get all the credit. You know, he was such a fighter. And we don't have that today. But anyway, so if Patton Patton did not stop Stalin. And so the reason I'm going to talk to you today is
small ebook, big impact, the wealth tree. The only 4 ways that will make you financially free forever. Download it here for free.